So
we are live. Good evening, and I call the June 8th work session to order. I will entertain a motion for the consideration of the work session and regular meeting agendas.
Mayor Claffey.
Councilor Woods.
I move to approve the work session agenda and the regular meeting agenda as presented.
I'll second. Motion has been made in second. Mr. Kesker, could you call the roll, please?
Ms. Edwards.
Aye.
Ms. Woods.
Aye.
Mr. Robertson.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Darby.
Aye.
Mayor Claffey.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Let me just point out to everybody that we are going with a short staff tonight. We have 5 members of council. We have 2 missing due to illness.
Short staff and short bench.
And short staff because we have everybody else.
We have no city manager and no assistant city manager.
They're both at a convention.
Yes.
Williamsburg or
Virginia Beach.
Virginia Beach.
So we're in good hands with our city.
But Mr. Blair will handle all.
Because he's just that good.
Yes, he is. And that brings us to the first order of business, which is a discussion of potential revision to nuisance animal ordinance. Mr. Blair.
Thank you, Mayor. And I think it is appropriate. I would be termed the third string here. So if we make any mistakes, please bear with us.
Based on your name and everything, Mr. Blair the third.
So before council tonight, and first, before I begin this item, Officer Ayers and Captain Brown are here from the police department.
Welcome, gentlemen.
And they're going to also offer to answer any technical questions you may have about this item before you tonight. But I'd also like to thank both of them. They've been very helpful during this process. So with that formality out of the way, before you tonight, there is a potential amendment to our nuisance animal ordinance. And a few weeks ago, I received a phone call from a Staunton resident concerning this ordinance. And if you've read the ordinance in your packet, you'll find that it talks about unreasonable annoyance and excessive sound. And the reason this person called, they said, well, I could lose my dog over this. I could be charged with a criminal offense. What does that even mean? And I started to do some research. And as indicated in the briefing, in 2009, the Virginia Supreme Court had a challenge to Virginia Beach's noise ordinance. And in that ordinance, terms such as unnecessary, unreasonable, and disturbing were used. And the Supreme Court voided that ordinance, effectively meaning the city could no longer enforce it because it said terms like unreasonable and unnecessary. Again, we actually have the word unreasonable in this ordinance, or what's called void or vague in legal language. And what that really means is the government can't penalize you or charge you with a criminal offense if what is written in the code is not understandable to the individual. So, for instance, I'll just give you a humorous example, but if a statute or ordinance said that you can't marry a individual who is not handsome, my wife might think she couldn't marry me. I kid, but you get the point that these terms are subjective, and therefore no one knows particularly what could or couldn't result in them losing their dog or being charged with a criminal offense. So after the Tanner case, and Staunton did this with its noise ordinance, but it didn't amend this code, localities looked at 2 different options. One is you use a decibel reading for noise. So again, that's an objective standard, and we actually have that for animals in our noise ordinance. And animals emitting noise can't exceed 65 decibels. However, there's also another option, and as pointed out in the briefing, the Attorney General has opined on this, which is a length of time that noise is made. And Hanover County had a provision that the Attorney General found was constitutional, and it's similar to the one before you tonight. And that is, if a dog or animal has 15 minutes of uninterrupted barking, meowing, or other such noise that's uninterrupted for 15 minutes, then it can be declared a nuisance animal. And again, that 15 minutes is an objective standard. You know, it's not the dog's loud, the dog's unreasonably loud, the dog is disturbing me. It's a 15-minute if the dog, yes.
So does that means any time of the day or evening or night if it's 15 minutes?
Well, and I'll let Officer Ayers talk about that, but before I wanted to talk about that. We can go 24 hours a day. There's a placeholder in there. However, you can set it for specific hours. It's up to you. And that was actually, you kind of read where I was going. I wanted to see if council had any thoughts on, do you want to do this for 24 hours a day, that if a dog is barking next door 15 minutes or longer, it's declared a nuisance animal, or do you want specific hours, say 9 p.m. to 7 a.m.?
I'd like to point out that a lot of people work at night. My neighbor is a night nurse, and she gets home when I'm leaving for work, and she goes to sleep. So I think taking those folks into account is important. Yeah.
Okay, and it looks like the police department agrees that 24 hours. And again, like you said, there are people who try to sleep during the day as well.
Mm-hmm.
One thing, again, I want to compliment PD. Captain Brown, I know you may have some questions. Well, how big of a deal is this? Since January of 2021 until June 2nd of this year, there had been 4 total complaints. 2 had been filed by the police department. 2, when I talk about warrants, I should say, and then 2 had been taken out by citizens. So it's not as if this ultimately escalates very often, but it does. It has happened 4 times in about 2.5 years. Again, saying that this is a work session. I'll ask Officer Ayers or Captain Brown if they have anything they'd like to add, but it's more to discuss. I mean, yes.
So is it like 15 minutes or more and then the dog stops, and then is it continuous? So would that be?
It would have to be continuous.
Okay. So like say 15 minutes making noise, and then all of a sudden it stops, and then an hour later it's back again doing.
No. If it hit 15 minutes, then it would violate the ordinance.
It would violate at 15 minutes,
yes.
No matter if it stops or.
Right.
Okay.
There's one other thing, and again, I don't want to take up all the time, so I'll let PD come up. But we also have put in there that it would be citizen-oriented warrants. And the reason for that is, quite frankly, there isn't the capacity or resources. And that may sound a little odd, but think about this to your point, Counselor Woods. Animal control gets a call about excessive barking. They go out, they listen, the dog barks for 8 minutes, then it stops. Then they drive away, then the dog starts barking again for 20 minutes, and they get a call from the same household. They couldn't continuously respond to these complaints. So there's provision that citizens would have to swear out a warrant. Because again, animal control just, if it turned into that, they'd be called all the time, and they just can't sit there for 15 minutes waiting for dogs to bark or not bark. To you all. I'll let the Captain Brown and Officer Ayers also talk to you.
I think Mr. Blair did a great job of introducing and explaining all the issues with that, but we certainly what all may have regarding this.
John, I think what Alice was also getting at, and I want to make sure I understand it, talking about the 15 minutes. Was this a 50, you're allowed, let's say, went to 14 minutes, started back up, another 14 minutes, maybe stopped, later on 8 minutes. Is this combined, or is this all at one time?
No, it's all at one time.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So my question, when I read the ordinance, I thought, okay, well, 15 minutes, that's objective. That makes sense. But like you said, it could come down to sort of a he said, she said type of thing. So how do you prove that? And it comes down to the person who is complaining, filling out a warrant. And then how do you, is it incumbent upon that person to prove that their dog is violating this?
It could come down to that, yes. But there's, as any misdemeanor offense, a citizen can go and obtain the warrant, and then it's incumbent on that person to present that case in court.
Right.
So yes, it could come down to a he said, she said type of situation, but they're going to have more knowledge and be able to explain better to the judge the ongoing issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Than maybe we would.
Right.
So
it takes you guys out of the stopwatch.
This wouldn't be just like a one time, like say today the dog wasn't feeling well, something was going on with him, and he started barking for 15 minutes, and he's never did that before. So, I mean, it would be like a day to day.
He can speak to more of this. So there's been 4 criminal charges placed in 2.5 years. I think the call volume that you would see is extremely high compared to that. So they just do an excellent job of working with the complainant, working with the owners of the animal to come up with ways to eliminate this type of situation. So that's really their great work in working with our residents to try to fix the problem versus it reaching a criminal charge. This is just kind of the last.
Yeah, and that will continue.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. This will give the citizen an option, if those don't resolve themselves, to be able to go and come down and get the warrant and put it in front of a judge to then give the judge an opportunity to fix it.
And if we only have had 4 instances in two years?
We've had charges.
4 charges.
Yes.
Does this pertain, we were talking about the dog park. Now, I mean, there's a lot of barking that goes on at the dog park. I mean, but
we're not getting complaints from
not
residents regarding that. It's far enough away from any residential home that nobody's really calling on that.
That's good, because I told you I've got a new dog, and this morning at 7:00, he's a bird dog. These 4 ducks came up right off the thing and sit there at the fence. They knew he couldn't get to them. He went crazy. So I figured out, I went outside and shooed the ducks into the pond, and he shut up.
I'm getting my stopwatch.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you all.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Appreciate your work. Thank you.
And if you have any further questions or comments, email them, but we will put this on a future agenda for action.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Blair.
All right, we'll give you time to get back over to your other seat before we have the update on the bicycle infrastructure design plans for Churchville Avenue, Spring Hill Road. Mr. Blair.
It could be Brian.
Rodney Rhodes, our senior planner, will be handling this item.
Rocky.
Welcome.
Thank you,
Rocky.
Mayor Claffey and City Council members. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. As I'm sure the council knows, city staff has been working with the Timmons Group this past year to design bicycle infrastructure along Churchville, basically from Lewis Street out to Shuttley Mill. Thank you. And we've reviewed many different variations of this. We've taken it to the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee for comments and a lot of back and forth. We had a public meeting at Gypsy Hill Park Gym that was well attended and received comments at that event. A representative of the Timmins Group came on this past September to council in a similar work session and showed their 60% plans. And there was some discussion among council members at that time. And although no vote was taken in a work session, it appeared that the consensus was at that time that council was supportive of this, but did have some concerns about this intersection, Spring Hill and Churchville, and had specific concerns about removing that right-hand turn lane from Churchville onto Spring Hill Road. We're at the point now where we need to finalize these plans. We're working on 90% of plans now, so we can implement this. We want to wrap this up so we can then go to construction. And this is the one intersection that we would like to revisit. The engineers in the city would like to provide council with some additional information about this intersection. And also Captain Brown has some drone footage of this intersection as far as how it operates now. So for one, Kylie, if you could pull up those designs, and I think I'm going to turn it over now to Jeff.
Okay.
Welcome. Do I have slides, Kyle?
Yes, you do.
Okay, good.
I'm sorry.
I was just listening. So the issue with that particular intersection is largely about footprint. It's a real tight intersection. Okay. There we are. So right now we've got 2 lanes, on Churchville, 2 lanes approaching that intersection eastbound, 2 lanes approaching it westbound. And yeah, I'm going to let Lyle get me to where I need to be. Like the blue lanes are a well-oiled machine.
That's the 60%. Is that what?
That's right. So that's the 60%. Yeah, let's start with the existing. Yeah, just go back to there. So right now with the 2 lanes, eastbound and westbound, it's really tight. All those lanes are extremely narrow. And again, I think people at this point are used to knowing that someone's going to veer out into their lane, especially larger vehicles that are making turns, and it just sort of happens. Both Captain Brown and I are sort of amazed we don't see more incidents at that intersection. And then obviously there's no way to cram a bike lane into that current situation. So at the 60% design. Now we can go to that. The plan was to go to 1 eastbound and 1 westbound lane in each direction. So now instead of two vehicle travel lanes, it's 1 vehicle travel lane and a bike lane in both directions, which is more appropriate for that amount of traffic. But obviously that's a significant change to the vehicle pattern. Now, it's not really about moving vehicles through the intersection because that's a no right on red light for westbound traffic. So not having a turn lane doesn't really slow anybody up. They can't turn right until the light's green anyway. It is about stacking. It's about the real estate to allow cars to stack and avoid blocking Selma, which is unfortunately close on the upstream side. That's really the only transportation downside. Obviously, it's a significant change, and that's, there's going to be some resistance to that change, a new traffic pattern to learn. But from a transportation standpoint, it's really about do we or do we not have enough surface area there to stack the vehicles and not block folks who are trying to get in and especially out of Selma. So Captain Brown was able to arrange some drone footage. There you are, hiding behind the pole. And again, it's a lot of drone footage, so I'm hoping we'll have
Well, we were able. So first, I would like to thank Lieutenant Byrd and Sergeant Shiflett for their work on getting this footage together and condensing it down. So what you're about to look at is we flew this 4 times on May 17th, which was a Wednesday from 4:15 to 4:30, from May 18th, which was a Thursday from 4:11 to 4:27. We then flew it on the 31st, which was a Wednesday from 5:20 to 5:37, and then June 1st from 5:21 to 5:38 to give you an idea of the overall traffic that we're seeing, which was the busiest time that Timmons indicated that this intersection was. It's about an hour condensed into 2.5 minutes.
That would back it up right there. Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing that I did notice, if you see when it does stack, that there is only 1 or 2 cars in that right lane. So I know that those cars will be pushed into that straight lane, but it's not like there's 10 cars in the straight and 10 cars in the right to go right, in the right-hand turn lane. The majority of it is stacked already.
Right. Brian, and then the wild card is, of course, vehicles coming out of the gas station, because one polite person letting somebody out can really throw things out of whack.
Are you concerned about people cutting through the gas station?
Absolutely.
It could happen. Yes.
It happens.
I was going to say, Brian, it could happen. It's going to happen.
It already happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I mean, it's just one of those.
I mean, anything we can do about it? Or
we could certainly increase enforcement if it starts with, if we were seeing a large number of people doing it, and
right. Well, and
the station was complaining about it.
Would you put a sign there at Selma and say, please don't block the intersection? I mean, obviously,
no,
yeah.
We would mark
and
out the
hopefully
intersection.
nobody would do that.
Of course, I mean, then the issue is stacking now back to Donaghy, because that intersection is its own, can of worms.
So was y'all changing that intersection also at Donaghy and Churchville? Because that's a curve right there, and you put it in bicycle lanes. How that work?
We can.
It's already a turn.
You got the stone wall right there.
It's
right. No, we can revisit that section if we're done watching America's favorite traffic video.
Yeah, I just wonder if that turn, if you're coming down Spring Hill to go left onto Churchville, if you make the light shorter, it gives cars going up Churchville Avenue more time.
No, obviously there are some things we can do with the signal timing to address the stacking.
Right.
But certainly real estate is the primary variable in that equation. So we can't eliminate. You're right. We can. There's something we can tweak, and we will. Obviously, if you change the traffic pattern in intersection, you have to change the signal timing accordingly. There were, I think, once or twice in all the video that we definitely saw stacking that would push back beyond Selma. We would have to address that somehow in either in the signal timing or, obviously with some pavement markings.
Do I remember correctly that you talked about making that into a four-way stop?
Not that one.
Not that. Okay.
There's a few signals in town that I think we'll probably test as a four-way stop. This is not one of them. That's a legitimate light.
Okay.
Because they add in the pedestrian traffic to and from
There's a lot.
the park. It is a complicated intersection. And to some extent, narrowing it down to sort of 2 lanes coming from all 3 directions somewhat simplifies it from a traffic standpoint.
Jeff, because I know right now, is the pedestrian, that button they push, that can bring everything to a dead halt?
Again, I would have to go back and look at the signal timing to see if that's an immediate recall or if that just what that would impact that button has. I don't think it's an immediate all stop when someone hits the button.
Okay.
But it does enter into the signal timing. Again, from a straight transportation standpoint, there's a lot to like about this plan, but it does have that one issue to be addressed, and it would be infrequent, but I think we all understand it would happen.
What about the previous intersection up there where the?
Oh yeah, let's go back. Can we get to Donaghy on the plans?
Yeah.
So we essentially gained the real estate to create the bike lane by getting rid of the left turn lane onto Arlington.
Okay.
Which if you've ever tried to make that left turn onto Arlington is that's a sporty proposition as it is with the turn lane. So we eliminate the turn lane and provide the extra width for bikes to sort of hug the wall and the vehicles to move out a little bit closer to the center line. On the other side of the road, it is going to be sort of a wait your turn at the light type because there's a lot to negotiate. But it is obviously the wall there that is the real tricky part to negotiate. So there'd be a bike lane with a small buffer between the travel lane and the wall.
Be aware when you're coming westbound on Churchville and you get to Donaghy Street, that light is oftentimes red, denying you access to Donaghy. But the only time it needs to be red is when there's traffic turning in front of you.
That's a complicated light. Yes, sir. A
lot of people have pointed that out, that's.
It is, and it's one of the lights that we're trying to get some synchronization on the Churchville corridor to help get people in and out of the city faster. So it would be tricky. It could be done. It's something we can look at, but we want to maintain our synchronization through that corridor as well. That whole intersection, and of course the one at Thorn Rose is another. I mean, it's 3 bangers in a row, really, from an intersection standpoint. That we need to negotiate. This one, again, I think losing that left turn lane onto Arlington is not nearly as contentious. There's barely room for one car in that turn lane as it is. So probably best to just and there's not that many left turners into Arlington.
The only thing that scares me, and I just coming around, Brandy, if you take the turn lane, so you stop the Arlington turn. I mean, I've seen people in cars, they come around the park, and I mean, they hug the wall, and that it's going to have to be some education because I'm afraid there's going to be a biker hit.
Right. No, I mean, I think there's going to be an educational component for the whole plan. Every intersection will be modified, some more than others. But that's, again, it's, there's a little more room, a little more asphalt to work with here than there is at Spring Hill. But again, the geometry there is a hot mess.
I think a lot of people that do ride bikes, though, take advantage of Gypsy Hill Park and Constitution Drive. And, it almost makes it a moot point. I do not see as many bicycles utilizing Churchville Avenue as you do seeing them use the park.
I agree, but of course at this point there's really nothing on Churchville Avenue that would inspire a biker to even try, because you've got the big wide travel lanes, you've got those sort of left turn lanes throughout Churchville that sort of intermittently shove the through traffic up against the curve. It's a fairly wide little swath of asphalt, but it's not super biker friendly now. So the idea would be if it was a little more bike friendly, that there would maybe not be as much through the park.
There's some that do.
Oh, there are, because you got you've got the triple whammy of park traffic, of vehicles, pedestrians, and cyclists all trying to share the road.
So we're at Donaghy. So what about the Churchville Avenue to the park entrance coming off of?
All right. Okay. We can roll back to that one.
Coming off of Churchville and Thorn Rose.
Thorn Rose, yeah.
That right there needs. If you come through there at 4:30 through 6 o'clock, you
have that one. Let's see if Lyle can find it. So we're, on a side note, we've been talking with VDOT about maybe some changes to that intersection to help tidy it up a little bit as well. But right now, that's the plan. So you're gonna have folks who are looking to turn right off of Churchville into the park will have to be cognizant of bikes because they'll be crossing a bike lane. Other than that, there's actually a ton of space that's kind of the problem with that intersection. There's so much space. You got the big islands and
It's
roundabout. I mean,
so I've seen VDOT's roundabout concept, and it's not so much a roundabout. Think of it as like a bulbous kidney bean shaped roundabout. It's again, it's one of the things that they're looking at. Lyle and I are not fans, but so we'll continue to have that conversation with them. But it would be essentially a 2 intersection double roundabout. Yeah. Mr. Mayor, that expression was pretty much my expression.
Thinking about it, it's a mess.
No, that intersection there's a lot going on there, but there's a fair amount of space for it as well. That one is probably not as concerning as the other two.
So would you change anything coming off of Thorn Rose onto Churchville? Because that is the problem coming.
Not as part of the bike plan. That's something we would look at as part of the intersection study down the road. Am I missing anything? So again, I think staff we're fans of the 60% plan of on Spring Hill, of going down to essentially 2 lanes, 1 lane each way in every direction at that intersection to create the space for the bike lane. The alternative is to convert that section into a share the road scenario. So we'll go bike lane, share the road, and then back to bike lane, which preserves that turn lane. But I don't know. I don't want to speak for Bike Ped on this one.
Well, I would note that as far as heading out of town, there in the 60% plan, there is a bike lane from Lewis Street to
Charlie Mill.
Charlie Mill. This would be the only section where you would not have a designated bike lane heading out of town. We don't have it continuously into town, but actually the grade works with you coming into town. You're going downhill, and I've traveled that road many times on a bicycle, and it's fun coming into town on Churchville. But heading out of town, you are going uphill the whole time.
So what do you need from us?
I think we're looking for a thumbs up or thumbs down on whether or not to pursue the, single lane, on Churchville at that intersection without the turn lanes.
Council?
Well, it's definitely part of our city plan is to, increase walkability, bikeability, and we want to see that happen. And it looks like it's the best that can be done at that intersection. And Timmons Group's been working on it for, a year now, I guess, and longer than that. So, I think at some point you got to move ahead.
Try something, we have to try something different, I'm afraid, yeah. I would say
go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Lots of education.
Because, as you said, people are biking up there anyway, and this, I think, will make it more safe. And people actually see that there's a bike lane and expect bikes.
Should have positive impacts on traffic safety.
Yeah.
We'll have to do what we can to mitigate the impacts on traffic flow. But traffic safety, it's going to provide adequate space in each of those travel lanes. I know I've had that awkward judgment of, can I fit next to that truck and trailer, or and so that kind of eliminates that guesswork.
Right. All right.
All in favor of proceeding?
Yeah. I am.
Go for it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for your work on this.
Thank you. All right.
Take it away.
And that brings us to the closed meeting session. I will entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Mayor Claffey, I move to enter a closed meeting for discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real property located within the northwestern portion of the city of Staunton, Virginia, for the location of water infrastructure, where discussion in open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A3, in consultation with legal counsel regarding specific legal matters related to the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A8.
You done?
Yes.
Thank you. There's a motion on the. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Mr. Kesker.
Mr. Robertson.
Aye.
Ms. Edwards.
Aye.
Ms. Woods.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Darby.
Aye.
Mayor Claffey.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. We are in closed session now until 7:00. All right. Good evening. I apologize for us being late. We've been in closed session. I will now entertain a motion to come out of closed session.
Mayor Claffey.
Councilor Wood.
I move that council reconvene in an open meeting and certify to the best of each member's knowledge that only lawfully exempted public business matters were discussed and that only public business matters as identified in the closed meeting motion were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting.
Thank you. Motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Robertson. Mr. Kesker.
Ms. Edwards.
Aye.
Ms. Woods.
Aye.
Mr. Robertson.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Darby.
Aye.
Mayor Claffey.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Very good. All right. And if everyone would join me, we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may notice we're a little short-handed tonight. We have two members of council that are sick and unable to be here tonight. And then we also have two members of staff down in, Virginia Beach? Tough time to go to Virginia Beach, isn't it? But Miss Beauregard and her assistant are down there. So therefore, Mr. Blair is doing everything tonight for us. So he's wearing many hats. So thank you, John, for filling in. That brings us to the invocation moment of silence, which was supposed to be brought to us by Terry Holmes, but Councilor Robertson's going to fill in.
Just found this out, so I'm going to do a Christian prayer. If you'd like to bow your heads, please join along. Dear Heavenly and Gracious Father, we simply ask your grace tonight on us as counselors that make wise decisions. We ask that you be with each and every one of us to give us what you think is best for the people. Dear Lord, I ask now that you also protect us and our brothers and sisters to the north from the wildfire smoke that's coming in that can do so much damage to people that have medical causes and reasons that this is not what's best for them. This can do damage to lungs, and we ask that you please protect them. We ask that our brothers and sisters in Canada, that you take care, and that our men and women that have been sent north to help put out this fire. And now, dear Lord, we simply ask that you be with our law enforcement and our men and women of the Marines, the Navy, the Air Force, the Army, as they serve to protect us each and every day, and be with them. And in thy holy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to proclamations, and the first one I have is Juneteenth. Whereas it is well documented that Africans were enslaved and forcibly brought to a land that would later become the United States beginning in the early 1600s and continuing for over 200 years, becoming the main cause of the Civil War. And whereas, although President Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation was issued on January 1st, 1863, in Texas, many slaveholders continued to enslave black people after the announcement. And whereas on June 19, 1865, Union soldiers led by Major General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas with news the Civil War had ended. And whereas African Americans who had been enslaved celebrated June 19th, also known as Emancipation Day, Freedom Day, Jubilee Day, Juneteenth Independence Day, and Black Independence Day, as a symbolic date representing African American freedom. And whereas Juneteenth also serves as a reminder of the work yet to come that will be necessary in order to ensure a more equitable world for future generations. And whereas Juneteenth has been celebrated by Texans since 1866, it became a Virginia state and federal holiday in 2021. And whereas the Shenandoah Valley Juneteenth Celebration Committee began hosting an annual celebration of Juneteenth in Staunton, Virginia in 2017, and whereas Staunton City Council recognizes that the observance of the end of American slavery is a part of the history and heritage of the United States, and acknowledges the significance of Juneteenth as a federal, state, and citywide day of celebration. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by Staunton City Council that June 19, 2023 is hereby recognized as Juneteenth in the city of Staunton, and council encourages all residents to join together in celebration and solidarity, and urges all residents to actively raise their own awareness of the significance of this celebration in African American history and in the heritage of our nation and city. In witness whereof, I have hereto set my hand and caused the seal of the city to be affixed, adopted, this 8th day of June, 2023. Thank you. And is Sheila Armani here? Don't want to come for a picture.
Is she going to speak first?
Well, no, after we give her.
Oh, okay. We're going to get a picture with you first.
Okay.
You get your proclamation. Congratulations. I want to come with you a picture.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Claffey, City Council members, and staff. On behalf of the Shenandoah Valley Juneteenth organization, thank you for acknowledging the historic and social justice significance of Juneteenth with its proclamation. It is a testament to the shroud of ignorance, fear, and injustices we must continuously disrobe if we are to live and coexist in a country that speaks of freedom and justice in revered historical documents, but still falls short of this. Our organization extends an invitation to you to several upcoming Juneteenth events. June 17th is open house at Montgomery Hall Park, 11 a.m., a history of the evolution of Montgomery Hall Park. One of its early owners was John Howell Payton, a former mayor of Staunton. 3 p.m. will be Harriet Tubman historical enactment. Was Harriet Tubman the first Navy SEAL? And the presenter is Mooney Jackson Amos. June 18, 2 p.m., Two Hearts, One Mission at Frontier Cultural Museum, Dairy Barn Lecture Hall. It's a Father's Day tribute to William A. Miller and Queen Elizabeth Miller, founders of the Hayes Memorial Industrial School and Orphans Home, known throughout as the Queen Miller Home. Presenter Mooney Jackson Amos was a granddaughter of them. July 1st, 2 p.m., Staunton Augusta Arts Center, South New Street, a celebration of mandala art, featuring mandala art by Steve Hunter of Maine and mandala art by Dixon Learning Center kindergartners, and they did a fantastic job. I would like to now recognize several members who are here tonight. Councilwoman Alice Wood is a part of the Juneteenth Committee, and Kenneth Venable is a nonprofit affiliate with Juneteenth. And I'd like to give a shout out to Gretchen Bishop, who can't be here, and several of the members, but Gretchen is watching from afar and wishing her well in her recovery. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, my second proclamation tonight is, whereas our nation was founded on the principle of equal rights for all people, but the fulfillment of this promise has been long in coming for many Americans. And whereas the historical riot at Stonewall in New York City on June 28, 1969 is recognized as the beginning of the modern day LGBTQ plus civil rights movement, and as a result, for more than 50 years, June has been celebrated as LGBTQ plus Pride Month nationwide. And whereas on June 19, 1865, Union soldiers led by Major General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas with news that the Civil War had ended.
Started to read a different one.
No, I didn't. I'm reading the correct one.
Okay, here.
It's right in here.
Right here.
It's right here. I checked it myself. Whereas everyone should be able to live without fear of prejudice, discrimination, violence, and hatred based on race, ethnicity, religion, class, gender, sexual orientation, age, mental or physical disability, and be supported by their peers, educators, and community leaders. And whereas the fabric of our community is strengthened when we center the values of equity, inclusion, justice, diversity, acceptance, and kindness, not only through this month of remembrance, patronage, and recognition, but throughout the year and beyond. And whereas Staunton has a diverse LGBTQ plus community and is committed to uplifting the voices and dignity of all people in the community, and whereas the Shenandoah Valley Juneteenth Celebration Committee began hosting an annual celebration of Juneteenth in Staunton, Virginia in 2017, and whereas the Shenandoah LGBTQ Center of Staunton, Virginia was established in June 2018 by Christopher Woods to address the unique challenges faced by the rural LGBTQ community and is a community-based organization that strengthens this community through advocacy, education, programs, and safe spaces. And whereas the center has served countless members of the community since its inception and continues to offer programs and support for individuals of any age through all phases of their journey as LGBTQ plus people. And whereas consistent with the efforts of the center, the city of Staunton strives to be a community where everyone is celebrated for our differences rather than limited by what might divide us. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by Staunton City Council that the entire month of June 2023 is hereby designated as LGBTQ plus Pride Month in the city of Staunton, and council honors the Shenandoah LGBTQ Center for its work to serve the LGBTQ plus community, encourages the citizens of Staunton to celebrate their diverse community and join our LGBTQ plus community in celebrating the resiliency of the LGBTQ plus people of all ages. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city to be affixed, adopted this 8th day of June, 2023. Thank you. And to win, are you here? Yes. All right, come on, let's go get pictures. Except Callie must have put it on here.
Put it on. He was messing with you.
Well done.
Proclamations. I promise.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Thank you for having us. On behalf of the Shenandoah LGBTQ Center Board of Directors and of the staff, please accept our deepest appreciation for this recognition of a month that is so important to many in our Staunton community. We appreciate the opportunity you all have provided for increased visibility and especially of the opportunity for education. We're only 8 days into this month, but it's already been a difficult month. At this moment in history, we, the LGBTQ community, find ourselves more on the defense than in celebration. For the first time ever, the Human Rights Campaign has declared a state of emergency for LGBTQ people in the U.S. amidst a record-shattering year of anti-LGBTQ legislation and escalating political attacks sweeping the country. Our center has spoken and supported so many in our community that feel that they are in danger. I feel it, and I live it daily myself. But every day, I ground myself in the true meaning of Pride Month. It began as a riot, with those that had the courage to radically hope, fight for their community, and build a more welcoming world. We hope that this proclamation signals a lasting commitment on the part of Staunton City Council and of its citizens to continually work towards a community that does indeed center values of equity and of justice. May people of all genders and identities feel that they can celebrate who they are without fear. We will not rest until they can. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to the mayor's report. Last Saturday, I attended the ribbon cutting at Fairview Cemetery. We had a newly placed plaque out there. It's a nice event, beautiful cemetery. Councilor Edwards was there with me, as was Leslie Beauregard. And on Monday night, I was invited to have the welcoming comments for the Stonewall Brigade Band, who is beginning their 134th year of providing music out here at Gypsy Hill Park. So that was a great event, and I was out there. And that kicks off our summer of music in Gypsy Hill Park. On Monday nights, we have the Stonewall Brigade Band, and this week they did all Disney tunes. It was pretty interesting. Tuesday nights, we're going to have Praise in the Park. Wednesday night, of course, we have Bluegrass. And Thursdays, after the 4th of July for 9 weeks, there will be Jazz in the Park. And they're in their 34th or 35th season. I forget which one. But looking forward to a summer of music in the park. It is what makes Staunton special. When you come downtown, there's music at all times, all over the place. And our park is just it's a beautiful park. It's a great way to celebrate a summer night. So I invite everybody in the city to come out and enjoy and take advantage of it. And that's my report. Let me see. Today I went on a tour with the Waco's plant. And by the way, we're missing Brad Arrowood. He was supposed to come today, but he was ill and unable to go on the tour. But I went with Rodney and Pete Kesker, and we had a wonderful journey through a field with 6-foot thistles at one point coming over the car, and it was quite adventuresome. But quite a piece of property we toured today. So we've been busy. What about the rest of the members of council? Anybody been doing anything?
Yeah, Mayor Claffey, thank you. I just want to point out I attended the summer reading launch at the library. I like to talk up the library as much as I can, and it was wonderful. It's for all ages, so they welcomed me and let me sign up for the summer reading program. I made a reading goal for the summer, but there were lots of kids. The Red Hot Mamas were playing. It was just really festive, and I encourage you. It's not too late to sign up if you yourself want to do it. Bring kids, grandkids. Just for signing up, you get to attend a fun pool party on August 4th. And so, again, I just want to talk up our library, encourage you to go join the summer reading program. Thank you.
Very good. Anyone else? Quiet bunch tonight. All right. It brings us to the approval of minutes. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Robertson.
make a motion that we approve the minutes for the special meeting of May 22nd, 2023, and the work session and regular meeting of May 25th, 2023, as presented. Did I do something wrong?
Did Ms. Edwards, did you say you might have an amendment?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I was trying to think. Yeah, I'd like to make a motion. I'm sorry, Councilor Robertson. I spaced out. I would just like to make a motion to delete line 605. It's a repetition of line 600, please.
All righty. A motion has been made. Is there a second?
I second.
Very good. Mr. Kessler.
Ms. Woods.
Aye.
Mr. Robertson.
Aye.
Ms. Edwards.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Darby.
Aye.
Mayor Claffey.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Hey, it takes us to the regular meeting.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
We need to do a second, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mayor Claffey. I move to approve the minutes as amended.
Motion has been made. Is there a second?
A second.
Mr. Kessler.
Ms. Edwards.
Aye.
Ms. Woods.
Aye.
Mr. Robertson.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Darby.
Aye.
Mayor Claffey.
Aye.
Motion carries.
No problem. Glad we got that taken care of. All right. Now we get to go to the regular meeting. Item A is the public hearing of an ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2023 budget ordinance for the city of Staunton by adding budget amendment number 6. Mr. Blair.
Thank you, Mayor Claffey. I would ask that the city's Chief Financial Officer, Jesse Moyers, present this item.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council.
Good evening.
Jesse.
This should be the final budget amendment of FY23. Hopefully, we're all the way up to number 6. This budget amendment does require a public hearing, which will be conducted tonight after I run through the amendment, and it was properly advertised on June 1st in the newsletter. And I will bring it back to for your consideration at the June 22nd meeting. The general fund, the total amendment is $2,874,238. This amendment mostly covers grant funds and insurance recoveries. The general fund portion is $1,065,881. That is for $18,228 for opioid settlement funds, $12,102 for insurance recoveries for the Sheriff's Department, $28,500 for comp board funds, $2,000 for the Virginia CIT Coalition, $275,643 for the Swiss Free insurance recoveries. That's for the workers' comp that I mentioned in my update. $1,614 for PD insurance recoveries. $389,170 for additional VDOT maintenance funds. $287,443 to appropriate recovered from funds from Columbia Gas. That is money they gave us for paving for work that they had to do that required our roads to be tore up. Under Parks and Rec, there's $7,500 for the Blackley grant. $20,000 to appropriate a donation for the Gypsy Hill Park insurance project. And $23,680 for additional state funds for the library. The CIP funds net out to zero, but the CIP I am required to bring before you anytime we move money between projects. So $42,000 will be going from the VDOT match CIP into an account for retaining walls that needed to be repaired, and that's for the design work of that. Community Development Fund, $162,227. $51,227 is to appropriate remaining Arcadia funds. $99,000 to appropriate the Western State Steam Plant Project grant, and $12,000 to appropriate the HUD CDBG VITA grant. In the grants fund is $337,918. There are 2 grants there, $2,750 for the LLEBG grant and $335,168 for the ARPA Law Enforcement Equipment Grant. Blue Ridge Court Services for $106,510. This entire amount is to appropriate additional DCJS grant awards. HUD funds, $1,177,646. The entire amount is to appropriate carryover funds for HUD. The water fund, $6,642. That's for an insurance recovery. And the stormwater fund for $17,414 to appropriate the Monsanto settlement funds. This concludes budget amendment number 6. I can take questions now, or if you have none, we can move to the public hearing.
Questions by council?
I have none.
I'll go to the public hearing and we'll see. All right. In a moment, I will open up the public hearing. It is a time the council sets aside to hear from citizens about a specific topic. In this case, it'll be about budget ordinance number 6, budget amendment number 6. We ask that if you do have anything to say, please come, give your name, your address, and keep your remarks at 5 minutes or less. When you reach the 5-minute limit, I'll let you know your time has expired. For any Zoom participants, please raise your hand now if you wish to speak on this budget amendment. If you raise your hand during this public hearing, you will also be able to speak during the matters from the public later on. Once everyone who wishes to speak has had an opportunity, I will then close the public hearing. I will now open the public hearing. Would anyone like to speak on budget amendment number 6? Mr. Kesker, we have anybody?
No, sir.
I guess, Jesse, that means there weren't any further questions. So, thank you very much for that, and we will be voting on that on 6/22. Brings us to item B, which is a consideration of a resolution endorsing an application by City of Staunton to the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development for a Virginia Industrial Revitalization Fund grant to the Arcadia project. Mr. Blair.
Thank you, Mayor Claffey. Mr. Vaughn will be handling this item, and I believe Ms. Wagner will be speaking as well.
Welcome.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, good evening. The purpose of tonight's request is for the submission of a grant application to secure funding in the amount of $1.5 million. The funds will be used to continue the efforts to redevelop the former Dixie Theater. The building, when completed, will house a theater for films, event, performance space, classrooms, and a cafe. To complete the building transformation, funds will be used to install new electrical service, HVAC and plumbing systems, and structural improvements. Total estimated cost of about $3 million. The grant submission requires a 1-to-1 match, which will be provided by these gracious folks. There is no commitment for funding required from the city, nor is it requested. The grant application does require approval by council of a resolution and also to authorize the city manager to sign a local certification letter. Both documents are included in your packet. Pamela and Thomas Wagner and their team are here to address any specific questions you might have about the project. If there are any other questions of me, I'll be glad to try to address them.
Welcome. Any comments?
Sure. It's yours.
So we brought a PowerPoint, but perhaps in the interest of time, I don't know whether we're going to see it or not. Should we?
Well, it's up there.
It's here.
Yeah, go. Oh, good. Okay.
We tried to watch it earlier.
Yeah. I tried to show it at a different time.
Okay. So to begin with, Mayor Claffey, members of council, and staff, I would like to introduce you to the members of our group who are here this evening. Thomas Wagner is president of the Arcadia Project. Danny Brown is a trustee. Elaine Eccles is a volunteer extraordinaire who has worked closely with Mr. Vaughn throughout this application process. And is Michael Brown here? Michael Brown is the architect, and I guess he wasn't able to make it. Next slide. Oh, I do the slides. There we go.
So we inherited from SPAC, the previous group, Staunton Performing Arts Center, 2 buildings. We inherited 2 buildings. And we focused on the historic theater. The other building is called the Arcadia Building. And we had plans for that too, eventually to provide some revenue streams to support the entire project. But we did a hard analysis of that. and the analysis came up that it would take probably 3 or 4 times the money that we needed to do this project, and 4 or 5 years to raise that money and a couple of years to do the building, and then it would be a decade before it would produce revenue. So we decided instead, doing our due diligence, to sell the building. Robin Miller and Associates bought that building yesterday, and the funds from that are in our account, and they go towards the matching funds that we need, as Mr. Vaughn spoke, to get this $1.5 million grant from the state.
Excellent.
So it all started with a survey where we thought it was important to ask the community what they wanted to see happen in those buildings, and some of you may have even taken that survey.
So Dan Lehman at the Community Foundation helped us organize in the beginning years, 2018, some listening sessions, and we went to these listening sessions with the philanthropic community of Staunton, and we learned something very important, which is we learned that there was some just unhappiness about the debt on the building that had been incurred to buy the Arcadia building. The debt was put on the Dixie, on the old theater, in order to buy this additional building. We went to the bank and we had some horse trading back and forth, and ultimately we settled that debt for 20 cents on the dollar. It was a $350,000 mortgage, and they donated that was our first big donation, $280,000. We raised $70,000 from those listening session philanthropists, and that allowed us to own the building, both buildings, debt-free.
So we're going to jump ahead quickly. Yeah. So the good news is we were able to receive a $25,000 Main Street feasibility grant, which put us on the road to where we are now. Mm-hmm. We were just in the process of fundraising toward a 2020 application to the IRF when COVID struck. So we had to stop with the fundraising, but we did go ahead and submit the grant to familiarize them with the project. And indeed, they did come to visit. That's Tower McGowan and his colleague, Joseph Denny. And you'll see Ms. Beauregard and Ms. DeMeo were there as well. So in the meantime, while COVID shut down the fundraising, we started doing the grant writing, and we were able to receive a $50,000 Brownsfield grant. Thanks again to Mr. Vaughn, who submitted that on our behalf. And we did remediate the asbestos and mold inside the building.
We also removed 7 tons of material, including all the seats, which were infested with mold and could not be saved, and all of the textiles in the building were infested with mold. We did some remediation of asbestos, as Pam said, and the building is currently, we also raised an additional $40,000 to fix the roof on the back part of the building because it had terrible leaks, and we're prepared now actually for construction.
So for those of you who haven't been able to tour the building, we did invite you, silly us, to a tour this evening, but you were otherwise occupied. We're happy to show it to you as it looks now. Fraser and Associates graciously has undertaken our historic tax credit application, and the Part A has been accepted. And just quickly, we've been doing programming even without a building. So some of you might have seen some of these programs. We did a very successful series, Music at the Movies, at the Visualite. And now we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The IRF received $50 million in ARPA COVID relief funds. They have $20 million left to disperse this year. Essentially too much money and not enough projects, which is why we are so optimistic. So because of that, in addition, they had planning grant funds, which we received $100,000 in 2022 from the IRF. That was the largest planning grant awarded in the state of Virginia. This money was used to increase our readiness for the grant that we are here to talk about this evening. So it is all about readiness.
Including complete architectural plans from Michael Brown, a local architect. So we actually have the plans. We could give a builder, they can start.
So the capital campaign has been underway, and we stand just $150,000 shy of our total match. And we feel confident that we're going to reach that goal. So very quickly, these are some images of what the space can look like once it's reopened. And Leslie at least wanted to rent that space for one of your retreats, and we would be happy to accommodate you. These are our wonderful board of directors, and we're happy to give you pledge forms and brochures and anything else you'd like to see to learn more about it. And thank you very much for listening to our presentation this evening.
We're not officially asking the city for any funds, but we would be very happy if you would visit our website or fill out a pledge form. And if any of you individually would like to help us out, that would be great.
Excellent.
Thank you for everything you're doing on the property.
Thank you, Thomas.
We need to get that thing back up and running. It would be great.
That's right.
We're excited. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you for
any other questions?
Congratulations on the progress.
Thank you.
Pam, were you saying that if you do get this grant that you could put a shovel in the ground? And
that's correct.
So the timeline for that would be, we would get the grant preparation for construction, permitting, all those things that need to be done prior to shovels, would be done in the fall. We would probably break ground in the early part of next year, and we could be open for business in the first quarter of 2025.
Exciting. Congratulations, you guys. You worked hard. Thank you. And to your volunteers.
And thank you.
Yes, thank you, guys.
Good job. I will be glad to entertain a motion.
So, Mayor Claffey.
Councilor Woods.
I move that City Council adopt a resolution endorsing an application by the Arcadia Project to the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development as presented, and authorize the city manager to sign a local certification letter.
Thank you. A motion has been made. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Councilor Robertson is second. Any further discussion? Mr. Kester.
Ms. Edwards.
Aye.
Ms. Woods.
Aye.
Mr. Robertson.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Darby.
Aye.
Mayor Claffey.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Very good. Thank you. All right, let's move on to item C, which is a consideration of signatory authority on Truist Bank, U.S. Bank, and LGIP accounts.
Thank you, Mayor Claffey. Again, the city's Chief Financial Officer, Jesse Moyers, will be presenting this item tonight.
She's back.
I'm back.
Welcome back.
So the next two items that you have on your agenda are for housekeeping type items, since there has been some turnover in the Director of Finance CFO roles. The first one is to update the signatory authority on our current banking and investment accounts. Currently, it consists of Richard Johnson, the treasurer, and Cindy Fitzgerald, the Assistant Director of Finance. Richard Johnson will remain, and I will replace Cindy Fitzgerald as the other signer on the account. And this will be for Truist, U.S. Bank, and LGIP.
Mr. Mayor.
I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I move that City Council adopt the authorized signer forms and authorize the Director of Finance, Chief Finance Officer to execute all documents with Truist Bank, U.S. Bank, and LGIP for the cash management accounts.
Thank you, Councilor Robertson. Motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilor Edwards. Any further discussion? Mr. Kisker.
Ms. Woods.
Aye.
Ms. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Robertson.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Darby.
Aye.
Mayor Claffey.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Very good. Consideration of a resolution for cash management authorization.
Again, I will turn the floor over to Ms. Moyers.
This agenda item deals with a resolution that was passed January 2011, where it named Gene Colvin specifically in the resolution. And as you know, we've had turnover in that position at least a couple times. So we wanted to update the resolution to not name a particular person, but to reference a position with the city. The proposed resolution, which was in your packet, removes the staff name and replaces it with a position instead. And it also removes specifically named banks and therefore will apply to all current and future city cash management accounts. I can take any questions, or you can.
Thank you. Does anyone care to propose a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the proposed resolution to authorize the Director of Finance as Chief Finance Officer to execute all documents and take other action to establish custodial bank and investment accounts as needed.
Thank you. Motion has been made. Is there a second?
Mayor Claffey, I'll second that.
Vice Mayor Darby is seconded. Mr. Kester.
Ms. Woods.
Aye.
Mr. Robertson.
Aye.
Ms. Edwards.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Darby.
Aye.
Mayor Claffey.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And finally, E is a consideration of a resolution authorizing the adoption of substantial amendments to the fiscal year 2019 and fiscal year 2020 annual action plans. Blair.
Thank you, Mayor Claffey. Mr. Vaughn will be presenting this item.
I don't have a PowerPoint, but Mr. Mayor, members of council, this amendment request is to redirect unused funds from one project to another to meet HUD's timeliness standards, which is due by August the 2nd of this year. With council's approval tonight, funds will be redirected from slow-moving projects that were approved in our FY 2019 and FY 2020 annual action plans to shovel-ready projects in Montgomery Hall Park. Funds totaling $70,000 will be used to upgrade playground equipment in the park. According to Chris Tuttle, the director of Parks and Rec, this project was already in progress. So hopefully we're able to use HUD funds instead of general funds from the city to do this project. Amendments in the 19 annual action plan, there are two. We would reduce Valley Supportive Housing allocation by $16,500. The funds are in excess of what they had planned to do, and at this point, the project will not be undertaken. The second item would be the cancellation of $25,000 from Habitat's A Street Aging in Place project. This project is just not ready to proceed at this time to meet timeliness, and we don't want to lose those funds. So we want to move them to the playground equipment project. Mm-hmm. Even with that reduction, Habitat still has $397,000 in HUD funding for their project, which hopefully they will get underway by this fall. And at some point in the future, we could request additional funding from HUD to add back to this project. Mm-hmm. From the 2020 annual action plan, the amendment would be to reallocate $28,500 from the West Beverly Street Sidewalk Improvement Project. This project is very close to being, published for construction, but just not there yet. Talking to the city engineer, maybe by September, October. So we need to make sure we don't lose that money. So we're going to, again, reallocate that for the playground equipment. Plans are to request that amount of money or maybe an additional amount in this upcoming FY 2023 annual action plan, which will be presented to you in July of this year, next month. During that same meeting, we will give you a full report on our efforts to meet the timeliness requirements by HUD. A resolution for recommending the substantial amendment is, of course, in your packet. This amendment was properly advertised May 30th, and HUD requires us to have a 30-day comment period. Are there any questions?
Yes. Tell me about the A Street Aging in Place project as in relationship to what we voted on last month, which was an A Street project also involving Habitat, correct?
That is this project. A key component of it was to acquire the appropriate land area that they needed for their subdivision project.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. That was key. Next steps are to go through all the planning and development review and design work for the subdivision, construction drawings for the new streets, for the extension of utilities. That's what the HUD funds would be used for. But the first part was getting enough land area to make this project work. And that was, I guess, the dedication of land or the sale of the land from the city to
the city. It was a donation.
Yeah. A donation.
Yeah.
And Mr. Vaughn, you did say that the $25,000 could be requested again if the project moves forward.
Yes.
But it's all the one big project.
It's all one big project, and we started in 2019 trying to fund HUD's, Habitat's program. And then, of course, that was our first year of entitlement program. The next year we had COVID. Mm-hmm. So 2 cycles of COVID funding, and we just got behind the 8 ball trying to move forward in this project. And Habitat was moving from doing one-off projects to doing subdivisions. This is the first time they've moved in this direction, and I think it's a learning curve for them as well. But they're not going to lose any money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For this project. Right. We'll just request it at a future funding cycle.
Is it possible to request it next year? I mean, so we can. Will it be timeliness enough for that, as you say?
Yeah, I don't want to give them more money until they're really ready. They have $397,000, and so even if they started next year with actual construction, there's enough money for them to get started, and then we could come back and request additional funding at a future funding cycle.
I have a question. On the West Beverly Street sidewalk improvements project, what slowed that down? Why are we not where we need to be?
Again, first time entitlement. We received the funding. That was a project that the prior Public Works Director thought it was a good project to do in 2019. Mm-hmm. COVID hit. Just didn't move it forward. And now the design is complete. And I think, again, the city engineer is almost ready to publish that project in September, October of this year. And so don't want to lose it. We reallocate it, spend it on projects that are ready to go, shovel ready. And then this coming 2023 annual action plan, we'll request that funding that will replace what we removed.
So when will the playground refurb get underway?
I'm not really sure. I was hoping that Chris could be here tonight, but he has another commitment. Let me introduce someone, a very key individual, Rebecca Joyce, who is our new housing planner.
Oh, hi, Rebecca.
She's been on board for just 3 weeks, couple of weeks. And already, I mean, she knows more about the program than I do, which I know it's not a high bar.
Took her 3 weeks.
No, not a high bar, man. But the city's very fortunate to have Rebecca on the team. And she was instrumental in working with Chris Tuttle to find a project, a legitimate project that we use the HUD funding for. So do you know when he said he might start the project or?
Okay. Good.
Very good.
Thank you.
She knows more than I do already.
Yeah.
Well, welcome. Glad to have you.
I'm truly excited to have her here.
Good.
Any other questions?
Any questions by council?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
I'll be
Vaughn.
glad to entertain a motion.
Mayor Claffey, I move that City Council approve the substantial amendments to the FY 2019 and FY 2020 annual action plans and authorize the city manager to sign appropriate forms, including agreements associated with these amendments.
Motion has been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilor Woods is second. Any further discussion? Mr. Kessinger.
Ms. Edwards.
Aye.
Mr. Robertson.
Aye.
Ms. Woods.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Darby.
Aye.
Mayor Claffey.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Very good. That's completion of our regular meeting. So let us go to matters from the city manager, Mr. Blair.
Thank you, Mayor Claffey.
pinch hitting, but want to wish Ms. Beauregard and Ms. Kaufman a good conference and hope they learn a lot and enjoy themselves. A few matters tonight. First, the recycling center will be moving from Gypsy Hill Park to the Public Works Yard on Craigmont Road. To give the public some hours and dates, recycling center will close at 1 p.m. on June 30th, and it will reopen at the Public Works Yard at 9 a.m. on July the 3rd. Second announcement would be to let the public be aware that city offices and city services will not be provided for the most part on June the 19th in observance of the Juneteenth holiday. Just a few highlights for the public. Shop and dine out in downtown will be extended through Tuesday, as June 19th will be on a Monday. Refuse collection, residential trash scheduled for pickup on that Monday will be collected on Wednesday. Recycling center will be closed June 19th. The library will be closed, but it is important the outdoor book drop is still open for returns. Parks and Rec, just to let the public know, summer camps will be closed that day. However, both pools at Montgomery Hall Park and Gypsy Hill Park will be open regular hours. One final announcement. Earlier this week, there was a notice provided that there would be a special meeting of the City Council on Monday to tour a solar facility in Louisa, Virginia. Staff was informed today that the public would not be permitted to join those tours of the facility. Therefore, Mr. Kesker, the city clerk, has sent out a meeting cancellation notice because the Freedom of Information Act does require that if more than 2 city councilors convene at a time and that they are discussing public business, that it becomes a meeting and the public has to be permitted. And since the public would not be permitted to attend this tour, the meeting has been canceled. City councilors are still free and may visit the site. Either one or 2 at a time may visit the site, but they may not more than 2 gather at the site to discuss public business. And again, that is why that meeting has now been canceled, since the public would not be permitted to attend the tours.
Well, thank you for filling in tonight. You did a very quick job. Look at it, it's 5:08. We're going to have to remind Ms. Beauregard of your efficiency.
Yeah.
And that brings us to matters from the public. This part of City Council's agenda is entitled Matters from the Public. It is a time the council sets aside to hear from citizens and others about a wide variety of subjects. A copy of the Staunton City Council's Matters from the Public rules are available in paper form at the clerk's desk. You are asked to familiarize yourself with those rules before commenting. Please come to the podium or begin your call, identify yourself, and complete your remarks within 5 minutes. At this point, we open Matters from the Public. Would anyone like to speak tonight? Good evening.
Hello, Dr. Mary Miller, 471 Albemarle Avenue. We in Staunton have a choice to make. It is up to us. Shall we choose solar energy? 21 years ago, I was adopted into the Shenandoah family, Wolf Clan, Oneida Nation of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. They call themselves people of the Longhouse. White people call them Iroquois. We are taught to listen to our elders, learn, and be responsible. Warren Lyons, 93 years old, Wolf Clan, is an Onondaga chief and world leader of peace who teaches. The earth is our mother. She gives everything we need for life. Imagine a living pine tree clinging to a cliff, getting all it needs for life from the earth. We are like that pine tree. Our Mother Earth provides, but time is running out. We have little time to make changes in order to survive. The economy of nations will be broken by national disasters. We see more disasters every year. Hurricanes, snow melt, coastlines washing into the seas, wildfires, drought, flooding, on and on. The haze today brings this reality to Staunton, Virginia. We must allow the laws of nature and stop the destruction we are creating. We can't keep doing what we are doing. Business as usual is over. We will not survive by unrestrained economic developments. We must join forces, unify, be of one mind, and plan for the future. We are here for a very short time. We must plan for the future 7 generations. In 1950, there were 2.5 billion people on Earth. Today, there are 8 billion. Population growth at this rate is not sustainable. Imagine how tiny the Earth appears from space, and imagine how tiny we are, and what a short time we live here. We must change our thinking if humans are to survive. We must stop competing and start cooperating. Many believe the Bill of Rights is about their individual rights, but it's about the rights of all people. It is about responsibility. We must think together as one mind. We are in crisis. We do not have time for self-interest. We must renew our relationship with nature. Our well-being is dependent on the health of the earth. Today, we have the opportunity to choose solar, a renewable, non-polluting energy resource. Burned fossil fuels release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, trapping heat around the earth. We must stop further destruction to the home on which human life is dependent. We have qualified engineering and technical resources for solar energy in Staunton. This organization is known by many of our own community members to be reputable. We can choose solar for human survival. It's up to us. We are responsible. Time is running out. We must make the wise choice for our grandchildren 7 generations forward. Thank you.
Mr. Castor-Green,
No, sir.
welcome.
Hi, I'm Stephen Paulson. I'm at 315 Sherwood. I'm currently a board member at Building Bridges for the Greater Good. I'm also a professor of sociology at James Madison University. And as some of you know, we've been talking about Uniontown for the past couple of months and trying to educate the public about this historically Black community. This community was established at the turn of the century in part because it was a place where Black men and women could buy property. And during some of the worst periods of Jim Crow segregation, this community improbably thrived. For example, in a report that was done by Dr. Julius Gaines, who grew up in this community before leaving Staunton, he found that the rate of Black home ownership in that community was about the same as that of white residents in Staunton at roughly the turn of the century. Sadly, it was this community's annexation by the city of Staunton that directly and unequivocally led to its decline. The most important decision that was made here was the rezoning of the area for light industrial, which did not allow residents and does not allow the current residents there to build or make improvements to their residences. As a result, this community that once had around 70 families has now been reduced to just a handful of residents. And not surprisingly, what we've been finding as we talk with community members is they're deeply suspicious of council. To put it bluntly, whenever the city council in the past has looked at this community and taken account of it, it's usually had negative consequences for the community. Nonetheless, I mean, next month you are going to be receiving a small area report that tries to determine what should be done with this area. When we're talking with the residents, increasingly they would like to see it return to a residential community. I think in order for this to happen, you're going to have to revisit your 2018 vision as it relates to that area. Right now, the areas behind the lumber yard, the Pizza Hut, the gas station are zoned for commercial development. If you allow for that commercial development to continue to be there, it's going to make the residential community there less than optimal. I think the community's vision, the remaining community's vision, as well as the people who are descendants and who still have property there, is going to conflict with the current plans that the city has for that area. And I'm asking you to next month, after this report comes out, and once these residents start talking to you, to take their concerns seriously. It's going to take a lot of courage for them, quite frankly, to come before this body. This is something that they're not used to doing, and again, they're somewhat suspicious of the process. I think this board has been doing great work. I mean, I think you've taken the concerns of the community seriously recently as it relates to the Hardy lot, the judicial facility, and in terms of what we saw today. I would just ask you to take the concerns of this community as seriously when they start to address you in the coming months. Thanks. That's all I have.
Thank you, Stephen.
My name is Barbara Lee. I live at 904 Rockaway Street, Staunton, Virginia, and I have two very important items on my list. I failed to get with the city, but Gun Violence Month is the month of June. And second, would you please unlock the elevator on Thursday nights for City Council? Thank you.
The one down by the police station. Barbara, do you mean the one downstairs in front? Okay, got it.
Would you come in for the police station and?
Got it.
Well,
I'm Annie Dixon. I live at 610 New Hope Road, and I spoke last week, and I wanted to thank you for your vote to delay the votes on the solar project. Unfortunately, there was a vote taken on the first of the three requests from the applicant without a public hearing that night, and that passed. And again, unfortunately, that was done before my statement where I brought up the fact that there were minutes that had not been posted, agendas that had not been posted, and various information that was not available before that vote, at least to the public and probably to you, regarding the Agricultural Florestal Advisory Council or Commission. That has since been posted, and looking at that brings up new questions. I had sent some of these details to you in a letter last night. But the crux of it is that looking at some of the addresses of the committee members who were present for both meetings, it turns out that the 3-2 vote that started this recommendation to both the Planning Commission and this council came down to two Staunton residents who live in the same block of Sherwood Avenue and a city employee who evidently lives in Crozet. So we are terribly underrepresented in terms of the Bells Lane residents and the neighbors. And I don't think this is a good beginning for Staunton's first venture and the developers into utility scale solar.
It's possible all these irregularities were oversights and probably the result of a rush, because there seems to be a big rush on getting this project through. But I'm here to ask that you I'm again requesting that City Council rescind that vote to remove the agricultural forestal overlay zoning from the parcel at 801 Commerce Road. And I hope one of you will make a motion for reconsideration of that vote based on the fact that this new information was unavailable to the public and probably to you. So I'm looking to ask that you reconsider this and that we can back up and begin the process with that committee, with the right number of people, with the right number of qualifications, and that the process be transparent, inclusive, and proper. Thank
you. Mr. Kester.
No, sir.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
Brenda Mead, 342 Sherwood Avenue. I'd like to first thank you all for your decision this evening to move forward with a bike ped plan. My husband and I just came back from a 120-mile bike ride. I'll be 71 in October. He'll be 76 or 77. I lose track in January. So bicycling is something we enjoy. There are many people in the Shenandoah Valley who do so as well. But I wanted to tell you about, we were biking the Erie Canal towpath, and we stopped in a little town and had lunch, and the director of economic development came out to us and thanked us for being there and thanked us for bringing tourism and biking to his town. So I think it's important that we recognize the importance of bicycling as a source of tourism and revenue for the city. The second thing is I just want to express my disappointment when I hear people talk about outsiders supporting investment in Staunton. It's discouraging to me. We will never. There isn't enough money in Staunton to develop Staunton Crossing. There's just not enough money here. There's not enough money in Augusta County for us to do that kind of work. If we don't welcome, we need to make people like Oikos and that the gentleman who is representing that limited partnership, he needs to feel like he's welcome, that we want his money in Staunton. Not that we are suspicious of him, not that we object to the fact that he's trying to generate a return on his investment. I mean, isn't that what developers do? Robin Miller has been investing in the city of Staunton for years now. And if you think he's not doing it because he's making a return on his investment, I think you're mistaken. So please, let's not let this sort of not from here mentality infect our economic development process and keep money from coming to Staunton. Thank you.
Kester?
No, sir.
Anyone else wish to speak? Therefore, I believe it's time. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all for coming out tonight.
Thank you all.
Is it